My name is Bob Parry, or Bobby Parry, either or. I'm 88, but I feel like I'm 60. I take 20 years off. I was born in St. Paul's Hospital in Vancouver, BC.
Do you remember who introduced you to the game of lacrosse and what, kind of how old you were and that sort of thing?
Yes, I do. My brother was, my older brother was playing lacrosse at the time, and he was, he introduced me to it, and I used to break sticks in for some of the senior A players that didn't have time to break in their stick, and I'd go down to the lacrosse box and I'd shoot that thing both ways against the wall for hours on end and break in their sticks for them, and then they were ready to use. So that's how I started, and that was a way back. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old at the time.
And for a box lacrosse player to work on both hands, left and right, that's out of the ordinary. How or why did you do that,
Well, I was always told that if you can shoot both ways, you have a better chance of picking up the angles on the goalie and things of that nature. So that's what I did. I used to work both hands.
Well, the wall is your friend back then, The boards are your friend and the wall is your friend.
The lacrosse box, there was that Locarno box in West Point Grey in Vancouver.
And that's where you'd break in senior players' sticks for them. And
that's what I would do.
That was great for you to work
on.
It
was perfect for me.
Yeah, just to do that.
Yeah.
And when did you play on your first team?
I was probably about maybe about 8 years old. I played all my minor lacrosse in that West Point Grey box, and we had a coach. His name was Jake McGregor, and he was instrumental in my upbringing in lacrosse. I also played probably at least 10 or 15 other sports before I decided on box lacrosse and rugby. I played at high levels in rugby also.
You knew you wanted to play lacrosse from fairly early on. Had you watched your brother play the senior games, and that kind of always gets you going?
Yeah, he was playing senior B at the time, but I used to go to his games, and I was a lacrosse and rugby addict. I mean, I just didn't know anything else but. Yeah. And that's kind of the environment that I grew up in, and I was very happy, and I finally decided that those are the two games that I wanted to play. I tried hockey and football, every sport there was. I tried them all, and my mother, she used to say, "Why do you pick the roughest sports?" Because I was only small at the time. I was usually the smallest player on my team. I was about 150 pounds, I guess. When I was playing, and even up into junior and that. And I'd come home with cuts, broken noses. She'd say, "Why do you keep playing these sports? Can't you play golf or something else?" I said, "No, I like the contact," and I did. I loved the contact. I used to go in the corners and sometimes get cross-checked from behind. And I remember when I first started playing for the Burrards, I went to one of their practices. They asked me to come out because they wanted me to play in a couple of games. When I was very young, I was around 16, 17 then, and this guy, was a big, tough cookie. His name was Denny Huddleston, and he cross-checked me across the back of the neck into the boards at a practice. He said, "I'll teach this kid this kid how it's played.
Welcome to the big leagues.
Yeah, welcome to the big leagues. Yeah.
Oh my, yeah.
But I was basically really attached to lacrosse, and I was playing on championship teams, you know, which the lacrosse season would run into the rugby season, and we'd always be at top levels and in the finals right up to the end, and so. And they ran in, the one season ran into the other. And the lacrosse coach would say, come on, it's time to come out. I said, give me a chance to heal some of my, because I have 2 replaced hips and a replaced knee. And this one's begging to be done, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want to take a chance of getting an infection at my age. So I've been doing other remedies for it.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and all my friends are from sports, from either lacrosse or rugby. And then after that, after I finished those competitive careers, I got into distance running. I ran I ran 100 distance races, but 7 marathons, including in 1988, I ran the Boston Marathon.
Did you? Wow,
yeah,
that's great.
And I'll tell you a story about that, and it's true. I practiced spacing out from pain when I was in my long runs. Like coming up to the Boston Marathon, we'd run 20 milers on Saturday, like they were walking across the street, and I for 2 years in a row, I got up to where I was ready to run that marathon, and so I came down with injuries because I was putting in a lot of miles. I was running 100 miles a week.
That's a lot.
And so then on this last, when I finally ran the Boston Marathon in 1980, it was when they changed from you had to qualify under 3 hours in a marathon, and which I did.
Wow.
In a marathon leading up to it. But I ran that race. It was in Trails End, Oregon, and I was only going to use it for a practice run, you know, because I'd already made the decision to run the race, the Boston Marathon, and but I ended up running that race too fast, for a lot faster than I had planned on running it, and so when I finally ran the Boston Marathon, the doctor told me, he says, you shouldn't run it, you know, you're going to have a problem, and because my muscles weren't healed properly. So I said, no, I'm going to run that race, I don't care what. And I've practiced spacing out, blocking out pain, it's called. And so I, sure enough, after mile 8, I pulled a hamstring muscle. And
that's early on.
Yeah, early on.
Yeah.
I ran the last 18 miles of that race with a torn hamstring.
Oh boy.
And it was killing me, but I'd say to myself in a positive way, there's no pain, there's nothing, I'm fine, you know, and because that's the way I live my life.
Yeah, well, playing, as you say, at 150 pounds and playing rugby and box lacrosse.
Yeah, well, I gained a little weight afterwards. I used to play lacrosse at about 160 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
But rugby, I could be a little bit heavier.
Bulk up a bit.
Yeah, because it was played in the winter, that rugby.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I did it, you know.
So what was the first organization you played junior with?
I played junior with a team called Renfrew. They were from Renfrew Street area in the east end of Vancouver, and they called me up as a backup, and I sat beside the coach. I thought they'd give me a shot, like early on, in the game, and so I ended up. In the second half, I never played at all. They wouldn't put me in because he wanted to use his regular players, without add-ons like myself. And so I went and sat beside him in the second half, right beside the coach. And I'm in his ear. Let me play. Let me get out there. Let me get out there. So finally, about halfway through the second half, he said, "Okay, go ahead out and play on the power play." So I was very good at the power play, and I was good at picking corners. And I ended up, I scored on 6 shots. I got 6 goals.
Wow.
And
wow.
And after that, he was so impressed. The following year, he wanted me make me captain of the team.
Yeah.
And
so was Renfrew Junior A?
that was Junior A, yeah.
That was Junior A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, that was Junior A.
Okay.
And the teams were very competitive at that time too.
Who would you play against? Like, what were the other organizations that you played against?
In Junior A, let's see, who did we play against? Well, our team was the Vancouver Rockies. We played against that Renfrew team. We played against Salmon Bellies, and that's where I first played against Paul Parnell and Beyond and guys like that.
Yeah.
And so I think Coquitlam had a team then, or maybe later on the Coquitlam joined the league, and I forget who else we played, but it was very competitive,
Yeah.
And the games between Salmon Bellies and our team, they were, boy, the checking was tough, and you had to be able to endure tough environment. In those days we drew pretty well out in Queen's Park Arena and Kerrisdale Arena where we played, or the Forum, and but it was competitive, very competitive. And then I got to know everybody, and let's see what else happened. Oh yeah, then our Vancouver Rockies team, we were in the Minto Cup. That would have been, I think, 1953 or 4, and that's when we were playing against Beyond. The first game, he scored 7 goals and 4 assists, and they beat us 27-9. Mm-hmm. It was the best 3 out of 5. And
who was he playing for then?
At that time, I think he was playing for Salmon Bellies then, although he did play for Nanaimo for a while too, and also for Salmon Bellies, and I think he played for a time being for Coquitlam, I think it was. But he was around the league. He moved around where the money was, at that time. And
for the Junior A.
Always Senior A.
Oh, you're talking about Senior A with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, always Senior A.
Yeah.
And then I was on the Mann Cup teams in 60 as a player, and a winning Mann Cup, 61, 63, 64. Both of those 2 years were back east, and 67. In 61, Bobby Marsh, who was a player that I played with, he always said that 61 team was the strongest team, even stronger than the 64 team, which is in the BC Sports Hall of Fame also. Because we had 6 guys that are now in the Hall of Fame that were sitting out. They couldn't make the team, you know.
Wow.
And back in those days, it was tough. It was tough even for one guy. I remember when I moved up that it was tough even for if you could. The team was so strong that we had maybe one guy would make it every year, and I happened to be able to make it the year that I moved up. And I remember very clearly that I had a choice to make. You were allowed to play, I think it was 7 or 8 or 9 games, and then you had to make a choice if you were going to stay up in Senior A or go back to your junior team. And Jake McGregor didn't talk to me for a long time because I elected to go up to the senior. I knew I could make it and play regularly, and so that's what I did. And it was tough. In those days, we wore no masks, no helmets. We used wooden sticks, and you could really hurt a guy with a wooden stick, as opposed to the plastic sticks that they use nowadays. It was just a different ball game, and nothing around your face. I remember getting hit. You know, this nose has been broken about 4 or 5 times, and Billy Chisholm, one of my teammates, who I always respected, he was a very good friend of mine, came from the east end of Vancouver. He was originally born in Saskatchewan, in a rough neighborhood there, then moved out to Vancouver when he was about, I think Billy was about 7 or 8 when he moved out here. And we ended up, Jake McGregor told me, he said, I've got a new guy coming out. You'll be surprised who it is, when we were playing junior. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And Jake wouldn't tell me who it was, and I was the captain of the team then. And I said, "Come on, Jake, tell me who it is." He says, "No, you'll be surprised." So it was Billy Chisholm.
Wow.
And I don't know whether you know him or not, but he was a good friend of mine from that day on. He was like me. I was working in a factory at the time, and the foreman, his name was Charlie Fredrickson. He wanted to teach me a lesson because I was like having keep fit classes and sometimes let the line back up, and he didn't like me, and so
you had trouble paying attention.
and so he used to put me in the box. We used to play on Tuesday night was our home night, and then we're working guys like all day on our feet. Wow. I used to work in a boxcar doing bulk piling. It was the hardest job there was in the whole factory.
Wow. And
this foreman used to put me in the boxcar, and I couldn't figure out what was going on.
On Tuesdays?
And then on Tuesday night we'd play at home, and then we'd travel to Victoria, so it was a back-to-back game, and Victoria was a terrazzo floor, very hard and big, long surface, and then. And we'd, we used to drink beer like it was going out of style.
You're thirsty.
I don't drink much anymore, very little. And then I'd come to work on Thursday morning and back down in that boxcar again. And So it was tough, but we did everything together and we partied. We used to go to a place called Henry's Golden Horseshoe. It was a Chinese restaurant in the east end of Vancouver near Renfrew, and we'd close the place up. And one of our players, Terry McKibben was his name. He was a good friend of Billy Chisholm's and myself. He'd talk to Henry and say, let us stay. We want to drink for a while, So he'd get the keys and
Really?
and leave us there.
Really?
And he'd come back in the morning. We're still there. And
Guys had a lot of energy.
oh, Jesus, we were close. We were so close.
Was he an out player as well?
He was one of our star players. Yeah.
He was a scorer.
Yeah, very well respected.
Okay, like yourself, right? Yeah.
He was a kind of a guy. When we played Salmon Bellies, we needed a lift. We were maybe down a few goals or something, and he wouldn't just try and run around a guy. He'd start up at the end of the floor, and he'd run right through him, right over top of him. That was his way of doing things.
Was he a big guy?
But it picked the whole town. No, picked the whole team up.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't that big. He was a little heavier than me. He's probably about 180 pounds, and he spent 20 full games in the penalty box. Which was out of his time that he was playing. Wow. And nobody's ever got that many penalties. The referees hated him, Yeah, they used to just stick it to him,
Sounded like he should put that in his rec room, like a penalty box.
Yeah.
Watch show.
Yeah.
I was interested because you could play left and right, which not everybody could do that. What was the percentage of goals you'd score kind of both ways? You go 80% one way and then 20% when you needed it, or? I
would say it would be close to that. I was a little weak on my one side.
Were you a righty mainly or a lefty mainly?
I was usually a lefty. Let's see.
Usually a lefty.
Yeah, this
okay.
was harder for me, but the best guy of all for switching hands, east, west, you name it, professional, was Gordy Gimple.
Oh, okay.
We played with him.
We've interviewed Gordy before. So, met him.
Well, Gordy was on that team. He was, I think he was the captain at the time, too, when they picked me up for that Minto Cup,
Okay.
And he remembered very clearly those 6 goals I scored on 6 shots.
That's amazing, though, in box lacrosse.
And at that time, it wasn't. You weren't. It's not like it is now, where you've got an offense and a defense.
Right.
And the offense is on there all the time. It was tough to score that many goals in the old days.
Huh.
And
what do you think of the way it's played now? Do you have any room for that, or you wish it was all different?
I still have maintained my interest and go to the games all the time. And I used to take Billy Chisholm out when he was crippled, because he never would get his knees done.
Oh.
I remember it was about 3 years before he retired. I used to tape, and Billy Chisholm would tape every game, because I had a problem with my ankles and knees and stuff. And Louis Morrow, who was our trainer and very well respected, and he's in about 4 or 5 Hall of Fames. He was one of the original trainers who took up and became a professional trainer. And he told me, because he knew I was very close to Billy Chisholm, he says, "Jesus, can't you get Billy to quit?" He says his knees are so bad,
Wow.
And he used to play through pain.
Wow.
Oh, God, he was unreal threshold for pain.
Did you ever get hurt in
Pardon?
a game badly?
Myself?
Yeah.
when I played rugby, which was for the Cats Rugby Club, I had a fractured jaw. And in those days, they used to go in through the top of your head, and they'd pull that out like that jaw.
Really?
Yeah, really. And I had to wear an antenna. And I played in the final game.
Rugby? Or
In rugby, yeah.
Wow.
With that antenna.
Holy cow.
And the referee had to have a huddle with the linesman to see if they'd allow me to play. They didn't know what to do. It was scary, believe me.
Oh, that's amazing. I never knew they used to do that.
Yeah,
Do that?
they and they pulled the jawbone out
Oh, boy.
like that.
What about lacrosse? Did you get anything like that in lacrosse at all, or just your nose?
I had problems with the bottom of my feet. It's called the metatarsal bone.
Okay.
Because
The floors were hard?
I used to get so excited when they wanted me to go out for a special time, maybe man short or something, and I used to jump off the boards onto the terrazzo floor. I landed on my heels one time. Somebody grabbed my arm or something, I landed on my heels. So ever since then, I had trouble with that, with the heels of my feet. Wow. And that was a time when I was hurting in lacrosse. But you know, my back started giving me trouble, and then that's when I started having my hips done. And I found that it wasn't my back, it was the hips were causing the problem. So I've had both the hips done and my right knee.
Was that after your playing career?
Pardon?
After your playing career?
No, this was
during your playing career? Wow.
But I didn't play long after. It was, I would say it was mainly after my career, because those are tough. Like I see other athletes, maybe pro football players and that, and they have a hip done. And it's traumatic. It really is. Yeah. And
now, when did you kind of you went into coaching and management at some point? When did that all happen?
Well, I only coached for a short time. I was mainly general manager, but I was running the whole team.
The Burrards?
Yeah, the Burrards. I was always running the whole team. I was myself and one of my co-players, John Servey, and we pretty well ran the whole team, you know.
Did you? Yeah, you're a good pair.
Very good. Yeah. And so I was general manager for quite a long time, and I learned the business aspects from we had an owner of the team. His name was Bill Ellison way back when, and I learned business things from him, and then I just came very natural for me to be a general manager. And I would like John Tavares, that I started scouting when he was about 15 years old. Yes. And when I phoned him and phoned him and phoned him and phoned him, and the only reason I got him to come was he had a girlfriend at the time, and he wanted to bring her out here too. So I said, I'll get a job for your girlfriend. But you annoyed some of my regular guys, you know, because they figure they were getting extra treatment. Right. But he was so good a player. I mean,
how did you find him at age 15?
Well, I had, like I said, I had a large scouting staff. You know, I had a financial committee and
you were organized.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah.
Very well. And I built that up over a period of time.
Okay.
And then I had a couple of guys that were junior A coaches back there.
Back east.
That were working for me, or they were assisting me, and his name kept coming up, coming up. He's now owns records in the Pro League, the NLL.
Yeah.
Which will never be broken, I'm telling you, because I just know that even some of the top players, they're going to be close, but they'll never break it up. And he used to, and he always got an equal number of goals and an equal number of assists, because they used to double team him, and then he'd flip the ball off, you know.
Yeah.
And Paul Day, I don't know whether you know him or not.
Yes.
I brought him out at the same time, and the Salmon Belly coaches said, how'd you get those guys? We were trying to get them all that time.
Good for you.
They said you got the right two guys, and sure enough, they're well, John's in a couple of Hall of Fames, but he's
Canadian Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah.
When you were a player, who are the top 3 players that you remember playing against, whether with you or against, that stick out in your mind? Let's say 3.
Gordy Gimple would be one.
Yeah.
Peter Black.
Yes.
He'd be another. Billy Chisholm would be another. I forgot to mention one thing. Like, we were so strong in lacrosse during those years, the league decided that they wanted to take some of our strength away. And Gordy Gimple and Gordy Gimple and Alec Carey, that played on the same line, they took them and put them with another team. I forget who it was now. I think it was Coquitlam. And
yeah, I think you're right, Coquitlam.
Yeah. And then the following year, they took the other guy off that line. It was Fred Usselman.
Right.
And Billy Chisholm, he was so mad that those guys left our team, and he got in a stick fight with Freddie Usselman. It's probably the only fight he ever lost, because Fred Usselman had such a long reach, you know, and he was whacking him they were going at it. That was when they took Usselman, and Usselman left. So we ended up still being a very strong team, but without that top line of ours,
there's a lot of goals.
It hurt us.
Right?
It hurt us.
Yeah.
It really hurt us.
So as a manager, who were the top 3 players that you saw, you know, from your management position?
From management point of view?
Playing, yeah.
John Tavares,
would have been one
for
of your
sure.
Top,
Yeah, he would be the top guy. John Tavares. The other guy I was trying to think of, his name was Johnny Rosa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Johnny Rosa. Yeah.
He was single at the time, and he was a woman's man. He was a nice-looking guy, Italian, and I let him stay at my house one day one weekend when I was away with my wife at the time, and these girls, I got back, they're going, "Where's Johnny?" Because he had them over different times, you know, these girls. And he said, he came to me one time after a game, and he said to me, General Manager Bobby, you got to help me out here. I got 3 girls out in the stands that all think I'm going to be taking them home. They were waiting for him to finish playing the game.
What were your words of wisdom?
My words of wisdom, I helped him, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
You ran interference.
And he never forgot that.
You ran interference for him.
Yeah, he was another guy that said I was instrumental in his life.
Well, Bob, we've come to the end of our time that we've got allotted for your interview, but thank you so much for coming today and sharing some great stories about the Burrards and you know, as a player and a manager, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Well,
much.
I appreciate your including me in your list of people you interview.